calling the regular Coburg Council meeting of April the 3rd, 2017 to order. And I would ask everyone to just join us in a moment of reflection before we officially start and open the meeting. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Henderson, are there any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor Brockenier, there is a bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for the Green Municipal Fund Agreement. And I request that it be added to the agenda.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Darling. All in favor? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest from members of council tonight? Councillor Seguin.
Just one, Your Worship. The ACO, Coburg East Northumberland, will be presenting this evening. It's not a pecuniary disclosure, but I am part of that executive board, so I just wanted to make that clear. I probably won't comment.
Okay, Councillor Seguin, I don't believe there's any financial gain involved,
No, there is not.
So you don't really have a conflict of interest, okay. Unless you feel particularly that you don't want to influence in any way.
No, it's strictly a volunteer
Yes,
position.
I know. As many of the things you and the rest of us do. Okay. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship. The one on 163 Ontario Street happens to be a planning application, a consent that is exactly right across the road from where I live. So, I know them personally. I shouldn't vote on that particular.
Okay. So noted.
Your Worship, at this time we have the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held previously.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that Council adopt the minutes of the regular Council meeting held on March 13th, 2017.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Rowden. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. And again, I will just remind members of Council and anyone else speaking that one of the concerns that we hear from people who are watching us on live stream that the voices are not coming through very clear. And I'd ask everyone to speak a little bit louder when we're talking tonight. So thank you.
Your Worship, at this time we have a delegation. Formerly it was going to be by Jerry Ford, but he has asked Jackie Norman, a Coburg resident, to speak regarding Coburg's handicap accessible transit winning of a national award and other issues.
Welcome.
Hello. As you can see, I am not Jerry Ford. My name is Jackie Norman, and I will be reading the presentation that Jerry has written. Jerry is not here because there is no transportation for him to get home after the meeting. He is in an electric wheelchair and does not drive, and therefore must rely on public transport or an accessible taxi to get home. He did, however, call today to the Wheels or whatever program it is that he has to call, and he had to give 48 hours notice just to get here, so he couldn't make it. In 2009, the town of Coburg received a national award from the Canadian Urban Transit Association. The Corporate Recognition Award recognized the town's exemplary performance and outstanding achievement for its special needs transportation program. I know all about this award. I was the person who wrote the nomination. I did not get to go to the awards ceremony, but the mayor and the manager of engineering were happy to make the trip to Whistler, BC to accept the honors. What was this national award all about? Coburg had established a new baseline for small cities and towns in Canada. It had developed an integrated transit system that served the needs of persons with impaired mobility on a 24/7 basis. During regular transit hours, services were provided by the town's Wheels bus or under contract by a taxi company, that had purchased an accessible vehicle for this contract. In non-transit hours, the accessible taxi service was available to the disabled citizens of Coburg at taxi-metered rates established by the town. Mobility-impaired taxpayers had just as much freedom as everyone else. Freedom to come and go whenever they wanted, wherever they wanted. They were full citizens, just like everyone else. You can read about it in the 2009 Northumberland News article, a copy of which is attached, and there is an internet reference for you. 6 years later, the town's contract with the taxi company came up for renewal, and the town put the contract up for tender. The contract was awarded to a company that would only fulfill half the requirement. They would provide services within the transit service hours, but they could not offer taxi services outside those times. Fortunately, the taxi company that previously had the contract still had the vehicle, so it continued to offer taxi service on a 24/7 basis until the van had to be scrapped. For the past 6 months, Coburg has had no accessible taxi service. Citizens of Coburg with significant mobility impairment who rely on public transport can only travel between the hours of 6:15 a.m. and 7:45 p.m. on workdays, 8:15 a.m. and 6:45 on Saturdays, and 9 to 4 on Sundays. Never on holidays. No evening activities outside the home ever. On Family Day, a statutory holiday commemorating the importance of families, and a person in an electric wheelchair cannot get to a restaurant to have dinner with their grandchildren. How sad is that? Social isolation is a major concern for seniors and persons with disabilities. It has a significant negative impact on their overall health. Coburg has the highest age demographic of any Ontario community, so this problem is guaranteed to increase. The absence of accessible transportation only increases the level of isolation, accelerating the decline of the most vulnerable members of our community. Perhaps this council is prepared to accept the very disturbing fact that an ever-increasing percentage of the town's population do not have the flexibility of choice that exists with the other 95%. But what about situations that are not based on choice? Consider someone watching their spouse of 50 years going to the hospital with a heart attack, knowing that all they can do is sit at home and wait anxiously for a phone call. How about the person who is taken to emergency by transit in the afternoon but doesn't get treated and released until after 8 p.m.? They must stay at the hospital overnight until they can get transit the following morning, or risk a perilous journey home regardless of the weather. Either of these options puts vulnerable people at even greater risk to their health and well-being, and may be a potential disaster waiting to happen. Carol Cherry happened to be found after being stuck in an hour in that snowbank in 2007. The next person may not be so lucky. Accessible vans are expensive. A taxi company can only justify providing the service if they have a solid core of business. Until 2015, this was the case. The core business provided by the town contract enabled the taxi company to maintain accessible vans. That ended when the town made a conscious decision to award the contract to a company that was not a licensed taxi operator in Coburg, giving no thought to the needs of the highly vulnerable people. Actions taken by the town administration and council in 2015 has created this problem, and it is up to the town to provide a remedy. It is not a difficult problem to solve. It just requires political will. The precedent was set in 2009 when the town entered into a public-private partnership that facilitated the purchase of the first accessible taxi. A case could be made that this precedent is an integral part of the town's transit policy with respect to accessible transportation, and therefore is a policy that must be maintained under the accessibility legislation. My request today is very straightforward. The company that was awarded the contract in 2015 needs to be provided with a taxi license, and required to provide accessible taxi service at a metered rate on the same basis that had been available from 2009 until the vehicles were scrapped in 2016. The town of Coburg was happy to collect the accolades that accompanied a National Award for Excellence in 2017. In 2009. In 2017, it needs to demonstrate its continued commitment to that level of excellence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. On behalf of Jerry Ford, I'm just going to ask council, because we do have pending litigation against one of the companies that you've referenced here, we will not be making any comments tonight, but this presentation will be shared with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and our public transit operation system. Thank you.
Your Worship, at this time we have Christina Nairns from the Northumberland Affordable Housing Committee, Halliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge District Health Unit, and Taylor Collicutt from Cornerstone Family Violence Prevention Center regarding a Homeshare pilot program being offered in the town of Coburg.
Welcome, Christine and Taylor, I should say.
Taylor. Mayor Brockenier and councillors and the community, thank you for having us join you this evening. I'm only going to take a very brief bit to introduce Taylor, which gives me lots of pleasure, and just speak a little bit about a healthy community, because I'm from the health unit, and when I started with the health unit in the role of determinants of health nurse, we were concerned at that point with Northumberland's vacancy rate, which was above 1%. Now it is much below the 1%, with figures of 0.5% and 0.4%. So this means, of course, that we have very little rental opportunity for a community who has almost 20% of its households who need rental accommodation. And we have projections of additional households, about 100 annually, who require rental accommodations. And yet we have very little rental production in Northumberland. So recognizing the rental challenges that we were seeing, a subgroup was formed from the Northumberland Affordable Housing Committee, and we called ourselves the Rental Advocacy Subcommittee. And with a small group and 2 interested municipal councillors from Port Hope, we had a few items that we tried to embrace. One was having the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation staff join us in a workshop that we put on last fall, and we ended up having a very eclectic full house, which was fantastic. That workshop was really centered around home sharing, co-housing, and secondary suites. And then we continued to put our heads together, and we came up with a proposal for a home share program. And we were able to receive funding from Northumberland County Community and Social Services for a 2-year pilot project. And that was to be able to hire Taylor Collicutt, who we are incredibly fortunate to have as the home share coordinator for Coburg and Port Hope. So she's going to tell you about that, and our work continues in rental advocacy and in affordable housing, but this program now sits in the very capable hands of Taylor.
Thanks, Christina. I love doing presentations after Christina introduces me because I think she just sets the platform for me appearing probably in a much better capacity than I actually am. But I am the coordinator for the Home Share pilot program here in Coburg and Port Hope. And I'm just going to give everybody in this room a brief overview of what it is and what it's all about. So home sharing is an innovative and creative housing option that connects women 55 years or older who are currently living in their home and have a spare living space to offer with another woman living in our community who is seeking safe, affordable accommodation. Both women benefit from companionship, offset living costs, and shared household responsibilities. So briefly, there's 2 groups of participants: the homeowners, which are women living in our community who might have a spare bedroom or a spare living space to offer, living independently in their home, and then connecting them with home sharers, who is any woman in our community, 18 years or older, looking for safe and affordable accommodation. Both women are willing to share household responsibilities, and both women are interested in companionship. Homeshare is really about creating a mutually beneficial relationship between two people who want to help each other. So how does it work? So the process for Homeshare is very front-heavy. It's very deliberately and thoughtfully front-heavy in hopes of mitigating as much risk as possible. So there is a 5-step admission process that's very thoughtful and thorough. There's an opportunity for both participants to match and meet. So I would help facilitate the matching between two people, and then creating opportunities for them to meet in a neutral spot, like a coffee shop or things like that. Then I have an opportunity to follow up with both participants individually, and this is really important, so that they can tell me whether or not they'd like to move forward with continuing to pursue a match with that person or not. Then there's what I call a suitcase stay, so a chance for two participants to live together with no commitment, and it's simply a trial. Assuming that the first 3 processes have gone well, then we move into the Homeshare agreement itself. Homeshare agreements and other programs last between 9 months and a year, and we're hoping our pilot is modeling that time frame as well. And then the process from the admission to the ongoing agreement is supported and monitored by myself and our advisory committee. So this is an example that might exist in our community right now. A homeowner has a spare living space in their house to offer. A home share would pay an affordable accommodation cost, and both women would share household responsibilities. Some of the household responsibilities might look like yard work, help with seasonal responsibilities such as snow removal, gardening, things like that, as well as household chores such as vacuuming, meal preparation, and then both participants offer companionship. Every home share agreement will be very different, and it's uniquely based on the needs of two different people. So the home share agreement itself, there's some very clear expectations outlined in the agreement, everything from visitors to what the accommodation fee will be. Market rent in our community, as Christina hinted at, is quite high. Approximately, it's $850 for a 1-bedroom unit in Coburg and Port Hope, and that's anecdotally on the low end. We're hoping home share agreements are ringing in closer to $350 to $400 a month, with that added benefit of that shared household responsibility as well. The agreement itself is negotiated between the two people, but typically lasts for around a year. As I mentioned before, the agreement is also supported and monitored throughout. So even after the matches are underway, I stay connected with all participants to make sure that things are going well and help navigate any bumps along the way. The agreement is voluntary, meaning that the homeowner or home sharer can terminate the agreement at any time. And then, as I mentioned, that accommodation cost. So home sharing is kind of that age-old co-living arrangement that already exists all around our community. We've taken that co-living arrangement and safeguarded it as much as possible. So everything that's listed up on this slide are some of the highlights that we have to safeguard success. So as I mentioned, home sharing is evidence-based. It's a model that currently exists all around the world, in some cases for more than 30 years. The program that we are borrowing from is specifically in Vermont, which matches between 90 and 120 people every year. So that is to say that this program is very evidence-based. It's a best practice in a lot of other communities, and we're seeing if we can make it fit in our community. As part of that application process that I talked about earlier, there are background checks and references, individual and home assessments. Part of that assessment process is also linking people together based on compatibility. So everything from I'm a morning person, is the person that I'm matching them with also a morning person? Do they have pets? What are their preferences around smoking? What types of food do they like to prepare? What types of shared life experiences might they have? So things like that. As I mentioned repetitively, I'm the coordinator, so I'm monitoring that match throughout. There is that trial stay as well for participants to kind of get their feet wet to see if this is a good fit for them. The home share program is also in collaboration with lots of other agencies that I'll discuss at a later point. And then part of the benefit to having this program linked with Cornerstone is the opportunity for some after-hours support for home share matches as well. So what's in it for me as a homeowner? So companionship, offset living costs, and help around the house. Homeshare is, in our community, an age-friendly initiative. So it's really trying to connect women in our community who are living in their homes that might benefit from some extra help around the house. We're also tapping into our lovely community in that people just want to help one another. That altruistic motivation of getting to help another human being in need. Homeshare also creates greater connections within our community. And in other Homeshare programs, some of the outcome measures that are indicated is better quality of life around sleep hygiene, decreased feelings of isolation and loneliness, increased feelings of safety, things like that. So from a Homeshare perspective, the biggest one is affordable, safe, and quality accommodation. An opportunity for support during transitions in life. Some of our Homeshare interest has come from people currently waiting on the RGI housing wait list. Some of the other interest has come from women wanting an opportunity to have a safe and quality accommodation during a period to go back to school or a chance to regroup, save some money, things like that. And then as well as the other two added benefits with homeowners as well, so greater connection to the community and companionship. So what's in it for the community? So we are increasing affordable housing spaces and not having to build a thing. We're increasing intergenerational relationships among our community. We're decreasing use of emergency services and shelters such as Cornerstone. And lastly, the Homeshare Advisory Committee. So unlike any Homeshare program that exists all around the world, Northumberland County is home to the first Homeshare Advisory Committee, meaning that this program is not a cowboy. This program is being done in partnership with all the people listed on that slide, which is beneficial because during advisory committee meetings, I sit around a table with a lot of people that are experts in their own field and offer a wealth of resources to these matches. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Taylor. And it's a very interesting program. And as Christina said, we have a 0.4 of 1% vacancy rate in the town of Coburg, and I think Port Hope is similar. So it has the potential to be very, very successful. The only question I have before I turn it over to members of council is how was the age limit of 55 and over arrived at?
So initially this program was designed as an age-friendly initiative, and other programs use Homeshare as a model to reach that population as well. So for the purposes of our pilot, we had to narrow down the target audience just a little bit so that we could illustrate some results. That being said, I think this model can work for lots of other populations as well, including men, which I get asked that question a lot. So to answer your question shortly, I think for right now, homeowners, we're looking at 55 years or older and women. But I think after 2 years, we will be able to illustrate how we can make this work for lots of other areas of our community as well, the populations within our community.
Good, thank you. So I'm going to open up to members of council now who may have some questions. First of all, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you for your lovely presentation. I'd like to echo Mayor Brocknier's comments. This reminds me, looking back many years ago, the program run at that time by Big Sisters looking for a care of an individual into a responsible home. And I'm pleased to say that during that time, not only was my wife fed it, but so was I to an extreme amount. The good news from that relationship, I consider our little sister at that time really, she reminds me of my eldest child, and she has a strong bond. And even though she's in her 40s today, she's still a really important element in our family. And it came out of very much what you're proposing today. So I'm very pleased to see that if you cannot hit your targets, you will still look for those responsible family members that may contain equity and a male gender in a strong partnership. I'm very pleased to hear that. So that was my main question. Congratulations, and I wish you the best of success.
Thank you. I think you've hinted at something really important, which is that this isn't a Kijiji help wanted ad. It isn't a room and board. It's very much rooted in a relationship between two people, which is something that I think, something that your comment was getting at, was that it's really a relationship between two people and that collaboration between them. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions from Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mayor Brockenier, and thank you for the presentation, Taylor. We've met before at another event, and I'm going to get personal here because I'm already living this way. And when I was at an event and Taylor was showing me this, I went, oh my goodness, that's exactly how I organized my life when I was in a transition. And it's so interesting because I was just jotting down, and I live downtown, and in my neighborhood there are 9 single 55-plus women, nice houses, probably pretty content on their own, and yet I would really throw it out there, consider this option for all the reasons you've stated. But the other thing is, because when people appreciate how I decided to live, the first question is, how on earth can you live with somebody you've never met? And that's the beauty of your core program, is the vetting and the way of building relationships. In my case, it's worked out very, very well. I had a house much bigger than I needed, and I wanted to stay, and that was one of my solutions. And it's going on 4 years. And everything you've said happens, so I would really like to encourage people in the community to consider that. It does enrich your life in ways you can't imagine. And the other statement I'd like to say is, if you would need anybody to talk to anybody about it, I'd be more than willing, even your Homeshare Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Other councillors again?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also had a special arrangement years and years ago. I was a single mom raising 3 kids, and that in itself can be a handful. And I was approached by a young woman who had difficulty at home and needed some nurturing and a safe place. And that's a big, it's a big decision to make when you have 3 young girls. But she moved in, and she quickly became my 4th daughter. We still stay in touch, and she's gone on to a successful career, and she attributes it often to the loving, caring home environment. So I think this is an excellent program. Thank you so much for bringing it to council. Do you have any success stories? Are there any? How many? You didn't give me a start date, or is this just getting underway now, or?
The program is about 9 weeks old.
Okay.
So the short answer is no. I do have success in that we have 5 applicants so far, 4 of which are homeowners, which is completely unanticipated. In other programs, the ratio between participants is about 15 to 1. So 15 home sharers to 1 homeowner. And it speaks volumes in our community that we have lots of women that are willing to participate in this program because we've only been accepting applications for about 2 weeks. And the response, much like around this room here today, has been overwhelming, which is great.
Well, keep up the good work. I
Thank
think
you.
it's a fabulous program, and there are a lot of people. I've been approached in the short time I've been on council for people looking for a place to stay, and this particular was a gentleman. He was just commuting back and forth, and he needed a place to stay, and did not want an apartment, wanted something safe, and there are a lot of huge homes here. So I think it's a relationship, collaboration waiting to happen, and this is such a caring community, so I'm sure you'll have best luck.
Thank you.
Councillor Darling?
Thank you, Mayor Brockenier. Yes, I think it's a wonderful program, and as an owner, building owner with apartments, I hear a lot of hardship stories where people are looking. We have a landlords association where we try to keep as many units as we can on the market out there for people to find, but it's very difficult. I was just wondering if you're doing any surveys of any sort within the community to see what kind of an uptake you would get on it.
Sorry, what do you mean by survey? Like, what do you...
Just sending a survey out to homeowners in the community, asking them if they would even consider the program, if you've got any data along that line. We've
been concentrating our efforts in outreach. So I joke that I'm a traveling roadshow right now. So we've been trying to find spaces and places where people are at. In terms of a paper survey, no. but I like the idea. And I think we really need to concentrate our efforts on word of mouth right now and getting the word out there. So please be my ambassadors for this program. The pay isn't great, but the bragging rights are. And absolutely, I think it's a great idea, and nobody can participate in it if they don't know about it.
Absolutely. The second question was, you said something about either side could terminate. Is there any notice period? Like if one side or the other decides they don't want to do it, you've got 2 weeks or 3 weeks before you have to get out, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it depends on the situations regarding the match dissolving. So we have some contingency plans put in place that I actually put in place before the match is underway. So part of our planning process is help me understand what our options are if this does break down. Again, some of those resources are built right into Cornerstone. Other resources we look at in the community as well. So when there's a small amount of kind of emergency funds available in case things go south. For the most part, most of that front end planning is to help mitigate that happening. However, humans happen, and human relationships are sometimes bound to experience rocky things. We are asking for a 30-day courtesy notice. That being said, because it's completely voluntary, if a match breaks down very quickly, then we would swoop in and wrap resources around that person so we weren't taking a precariously housed person and making them homeless.
Obviously, you've been very thorough. Okay, thank you.
Here's hoping.
Other questions? Councillor Rowden?
Just a quick question. What's the percentage between men and women that are looking for places? Do you have an actual list or count with the organization, Taylor?
Sorry, can you rephrase that?
Well, when you were saying you're trying to match people up that are looking for places, do you have a large amount of women that like come to the, or do you have an even amount of men and women that are looking for?
Well, for right now, the pilot program is only being offered for women in our community, so it's women homeowners and women home sharers. And as I mentioned, I think that model should be extended once the pilot period is over. But right now, as I mentioned, we've had more interest in on the homeowner end than the home sharer end. I don't think that's necessarily because home sharers aren't out there. I know from being a social worker in our community for a decade that they are out there. Some of that has been that we've been concentrating our efforts on finding homeowners. So right now we have a disproportionate amount of homeowners in our participant pool, but the program is brand new. We've only been accepting referrals for 2 weeks, and some of that is because of our concentrated efforts for one population. So it will even out. I'm very confident of that. But yeah, that's the short answer.
Okay, other questions for Taylor? Seeing none, then, well, Taylor, I want to thank you again for coming forward and making the presentation. As you know, we are on TV, Cogeco tonight, so that's a good first step in promoting this program, and so we wish you all the greatest success with it. And thank you to Christina for coming and introducing it.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Your Worship, at this time we have Felicity Pope, the President of the Coburg Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, regarding Coburg ACO's Canada 150th Celebration Initiative to obtain an exemption to the sign bylaw in order to place lawn signs on properties that were standing in the town of Coburg in 1857.
Welcome, Felicity. It's been a while. I'm going to ask you, Felicity, to speak directly into the mic so that people at home who are watching can see you too. Yeah. Maybe it's not on.
Is that better? Yes. I tried to introduce Diane Chin, who's sitting behind me, who is actually our current president. Thank you for receiving me tonight. This is a request for an exemption to the Town of Coburg sign bylaw. Last year, ACO Coburg and East Northumberland was granted funds, was approved and granted funding by the Town of Coburg for its 2017 sign project. And I'll have a short description of the project, which is to place lawn signs outside all buildings that were standing in 1867 within the town limits. The sign dimensions are 16 inches high by about 24 inches wide. We have received support of the Coburg Heritage Committee for this, but there are particular reasons for an exemption because the sign bylaw doesn't anticipate anything like this. We want to put up possibly almost 200 signs for a temporary period that will probably, I hope, be between mid-June to the end of the walking period in the summer, the end of September perhaps. I've included in this document that's circulated how this project will be managed, and I've listed the outcomes of the project, but I understand that you will be referring this to staff for a report. Is that correct?
I do believe that will be the end result, yes. But
Yes.
go ahead and talk about it a little bit, and then I can open up to members of council for questions.
Okay, you'd like more? The lawn signs will be placed outside the buildings, and there'll be a single text line that says this building was standing in 1867. The sign was designed for ACO by Bob Hambley, who designed the ACO logo. We answered questions that the Director of Planning had for us about how the sign project will be managed, which is volunteers will be responsible for putting the signs up and removing the signs and monitoring them during the course of the project and replacing anything that gets damaged. I'm still completing the list of the inventory of the properties. ACO is responsible for getting permission from property owners before placing sign on individual properties. We don't anticipate that everyone will be willing or able to participate in this. The signs will be placed close to the ground, looking like political signs, essentially that kind of structure. And they will be made of a waterproof material. The outcomes of the project will be celebration of Coburg's and Canada's 150-year-old architectural heritage, community pride in discovering the wealth of heritage resources in Coburg. We anticipate people will walk around just to see what's round the corner. Individual pride in being a steward of a building that was standing in 1867. Increased awareness of the material culture of Coburg. Some of it is hiding behind vinyl siding and vinyl windows, and we anticipate people will be surprised to see some of these places were standing 150 years ago. Understanding of how buildings can be adaptively reused. For example, Coburg's Fire Hall is now the home of the Northumberland Players. And the legacy in the form of a visual inventory of buildings will be attached to the town's website. And the whole thing is an advancement of ACO's mission to create awareness of built heritage. So respectfully submitted, Mr. Mayor, that is the letter.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Felicity. It's and you did say that this has been approved by the Canada 150 Committee, am I
Last
correct?
year, yes, and we've banked the money.
Yes. Well, if they gave you money, they approved the project.
Yes, but this is one of the hoops that we are going through very carefully.
Well, I think it's it sounds like something very fitting for a Canada or Coburg 150 birthday celebration. The one question I had was QR codes. I haven't heard of QR codes for several years now, ever since so many apps came out.
That's right.
Using QR codes, so they still do exist, do they?
Well, I had a meeting last week with the town of Coburg's GIS person, who is an expert in all things mapping and computer, and she says this is an older form of technology, but she thought it would work best for this project because the town of Coburg's website address would be far too long for anyone to actually punch into a smartphone.
Very good. So now I'm going to open up to members of council, other members of council, and Councillor Rowden, you were first, and Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And Felicity, I think it's a great idea. The only question I have is, if you were to put these signs in front of someone's building that's 1867, would you request permission first?
Absolutely.
I know we have to, if there's an election and we want to put signs
Yes.
somebody's lawn, we
Yes.
need it. And I'm just wondering how they would feel about the public stopping and starting asking
Absolutely.
questions.
That's a super question.
Yeah.
We are drafting a letter that will be a common letter that will go to every homeowner. We know the names of many people. And we hope to hand deliver it so you can actually speak to someone and they can say yes. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm in support of this. As a co-owner of a building, I feel like Councillor Sagan that I may have had a small conflict of interest, but there's no pecuniary interest, but I am very much for it. Having a building co-owner, the oldest surviving residents in Coburg, we'd be more than happy. I'm just, I guess for lack of ignorance, not having the bylaw for signs in front of me, what the difference would be with these signs and a real estate sign, that if somebody stuck in their front lawn with a property for sale, I was under the that the sign bylaw was only for municipal property, and correct me if I'm mistaken.
The areas where our project doesn't fit the sign bylaw is the fact that we want to put up so many signs for such a longish period.
Right.
So that's what we're asking an exemption for.
I see. Okay. Well, I'm very much supportive of it, and I wish you luck. Thank you.
The bylaw does relate to a number of different types of signs. So that, you know, if you have if there's an event coming to Coburg, for example, if the Lions Club or Rotary or one of the service clubs were putting on an event, they can't just put lawn signs around personal property, even if they have permission. So there are restrictions on lawn signs. Deputy Mayor Henderson, and then Councillor McCarthy.
Through you, Your Worship, and Felicity, thank you for a well thought out 150th project. I'm just unfortunate the home I live in is 1872. I didn't make the 1857, it appears.
You have to wait another
I'll have to
50 years.
Well, I'll do that. Here's my one question. After an extraordinary amount of work from your committee, have you considered after the 150 maybe to take the next step, maybe through planning, and to do some research what was done in Oakville? And why I mentioned Oakville, because when you're in the core of the Oakville with the homes that are significant ages, such as the 150, they will actually give the actual date on the home and a plaque. But more importantly, they'll say like it's the sheriff's house or the first mayor, and they give the name. And I spent a weekend in Oakville walking around, and it was simply amazing, the culture just from, and they actually created tour books, so I could walk around and see what it was like now, but what it was like, well, 100, 150 years ago. So I'd just like to encourage your committee to work with our planning department and Allison and see if something could come of that, because to me, it really put Oakville on the map, and it would put all the work you've done, in my opinion, to another level. So I just share that with you, and I will be fully supportive of your initiative.
Thank you. We are planning to do take advantage of what the town is already doing. There are 4 walking tours which use GIS, I don't know what you call it, GIS mapping or something. So I am looking for buildings which haven't been included, but in the town's existing online walking tours. They haven't been launched yet, but I'm going to see how what we have done can augment that if the heritage planner and the planning department think it's suitable.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to our presenters, I was in my former portfolio on that early version of the Canada 150 Committee, and I remember how delighted we were in the Arts and Culture Subcommittee and Heritage and History. What a creative and inventive project it was for the year that will leave a legacy. My question is related to the part of legacy in the form of a visual inventory of buildings connected to the town's website, because I'm just beginning to divine that we're going to have an online walking tour for the town of Coburg. I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, there are 4 that have been drafted.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, will the QR code, if I've got that right, relate to existing documentation on the properties for where it's available?
No, the QR code will direct the user to the heritage page on the town's website. When you get the opportunity to look at that, you'll see that the URLs, the website addresses, are incredibly long, and that's why the QR code was suggested as a way to go.
And just for follow-up, so most likely what that your URL is going to is existing documentation on that particular property. So that's wonderful. And then I am so pleased.
And then when the signs come down, because they're only going to be temporary, the UR code won't be working anymore. You know, you won't have the signs. But the material on the town's heritage page will still be there, as long as it wants it to be.
And just finally, it's what I always try to hope might be considered for people with visual impairments or disabilities, that at some point, although the sign might not be seen, that the walking tour will have an audio component so that they can go online and hear about those properties as well. So I know that's not your department, but
it's a good idea, because I realize this is a tour for people who can see.
Yeah. So thanks very, very much, and congratulations to ACO Coburg, East Northumberland.
Thank you.
Other questions for Felicity? Seeing none, then Felicity, again, thank you very much. It sounds to me like a very good project, and it'll be a great enhancement to the 150 projects we've got going on.
I hope so. Thank you.
Having run in a number of elections, the only advice I can give you is be prepared to do constant touring for the signs, because you will find that they somehow get dislodged and moved and so on. So there's a little bit of work involved in that.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, at this time we have reports. Under General Government Services, we have the Committee of the Whole meeting notes.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that Council receive the notes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on March 27, 2017 for information purposes.
Okay. Seconder is Councillor McCarthy. Any discussion on the notes? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, we have a memo from the Treasurer, Director of Corporate Services, regarding the award of a tender for the 2nd Street Fire Hall Restoration Project.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that Council receive the report for information purposes.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Rowden. Any discussion on the report? Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Again, I think the report in our package was quite specific and very clear, but I just want to make known in our discussion at General Government this morning, we did indicate that we'll look at the tower portion of the fire hall depending on whether the proponents wish to use scaffolding or an electronic form of a lift, because that will make a difference. And so I just want to prepare that Mr. Davey is prepared to bring that item back, if need be, to Council's consideration. Otherwise, Mr. Davey, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, we're just very anxious to get on with this project. It's been a while in the works, and we did attempt to tender it out last fall, Council will recall. So we're just very pleased with the prices that came in this time, and anxious to get this project underway.
Very good. Any other discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, under Public Works Services, we have a revised memo from the Director of Public Works regarding a correction to the report regarding the establishment of a new school crossing King Street East at Abbott Boulevard in Coburg, which was presented at the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Worship. And action recommended that Council receive the report for information purposes and acknowledge the correction regarding the estimated salary for the crossing guard as noted in the revised report. And our director had taken the wrong information last week, and we had the report, and he's corrected that this week.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Seguin. Any discussion on the report? It was presented to us last week in Committee of the Whole, and there will be action coming in the bylaw section, I do believe. No discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, under Planning and Development Services, we have a notice of the Committee of Adjustment hearing to be held on April 4th, 2017, regarding 163 Ontario Street, Coburg.
Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended that Council endorse the comments of planning staff and receive the notice for information purposes.
Seconder. Councillor Seguin. Any discussion on this item for 163 Ontario Street? Seeing none. All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, we have a memo from the Secretary of the Coburg Heritage Advisory Committee in support of the Coburg Architectural Conservancy of Ontario's Canada 150th celebration initiative to place lawn signs on properties that were standing in 1867.
Okay, Councillor Burkett again.
The action recommended that Council refer the recommendation from the Coburg Heritage Advisory Committee to the Chief Building Official in response to the request for an exemption to the Town of Coburg's sign bylaw to provide for the placing of signs on properties that were standing in 1867 as part of the Coburg ACO Canada 150 celebration initiative to the Chief Building Official for a report.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Rowden. Any discussion? We've heard the presentation. All in favor? And it's carried.
Your Worship, we have a notice of complete application, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision application for part blocks 84 and 86, Plan 39M-853 Alder Road in Coburg, Parkview Hills subdivision.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended that the following actions are recommended. That the application be received by Council and referred to the Planning Department for a report. That the notice requirements of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, be implemented, including scheduling of a public meeting.
Seconder. Councillor Darling. Discussion. All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, under Community Services, we have a memo from the Municipal Clerk regarding a Coburg Farmers Market agreement for lease of the market building and parking lot for the annual 2017 Farmers Market.
Okay. Councillor Seguin.
The action recommended is that Council authorize preparation of a bylaw to authorize the Mayor and Municipal Clerk to execute a lease agreement between the Coburg Farmers Market and the Town of Coburg for lease of the market building and a portion of Victoria Hall Square parking lot for the 2017 Farmers Market season to be held on Saturdays from May 6, 2017 through to December 23, 2017.
Okay. Seconder. Councillor Burkett. Discussion. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, in my former portfolio, when I was the Farmers Market liaison, as Councillor Seguin is now, tonight is their AGM, and we never able to make it to them because of the conflict with Council. But I just happen to know that they have hired a new market manager, which the community will be very delighted to find out who it is. And let me just say, and I won't jump the gun on the person, let them do that, but it's a strong proponent of cultural tourism and culinary tourism. So it'll be, I expect to see some really fine activities there this summer.
Okay. Other discussion? Councillor Seguin.
Just a quick comment. I'm sorry that I couldn't make the AGM as well. I asked what time it started, and it was 7 p.m. tonight, so pretty hard to be in two places at the same time. But I'm a big fan of farmers markets. I think they're an important part of all communities, and especially today with produce and local foods. I think it's imperative that we support a healthy farmers market this year and years to come. Thank you.
Okay, well, councillors, again, maybe you can answer this. The only question I had was, why are we just doing this for 1 year? Are we each year? Are we going to renew for a 1 year period only?
Yes, I met with Mrs. Brace, the municipal clerk, and apparently it's tradition. It's looked at every single year and renewed on an annual basis.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Is carried.
Your Worship, we now have the motions, starting with General Government Services.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Treasurer Director of Corporate Services regarding the award of the 2nd Street Fire Hall restoration tender. Now therefore be it resolved that Council award the contract for Phase 1 building envelope repairs on the 2nd Street Fire Hall to Snyder Construction in the amount of $189,800, inclusive of all taxes, resulting in an after-tax recovery of $171,000 for this work. And further, that the funds of approximately $35,000 to be held over from the 2016 capital budget to cover the project administration and quality assurance costs estimated at $8,000, and any additional contingencies which may arise during the completion of Phase 1 of this project. And further, that is indicated in the 2016 and 2017 capital budgets that these funds be taken from the Holdco dividend reserve account.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. We had the report. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the regular council has considered an exemption for an increase of expenses to the municipal town crier policy. Now therefore be it resolved that council authorize the exemption to the Town of Coburg town crier policy by providing $1,000 to assist with expenses for a public speaking training opportunity that was won by the town crier Mandy Robinson, which will be paid back through in-house training to municipal staff provided by the Town of Coburg town crier.
Okay, moved and seconded. Maybe I'll speak to this one because I was one who was approached by our town crier, Mandy Robinson. She won this very prestigious first place in this very prestigious prize of a training program that's being held in Tampa, Florida, for not just for public speaking but also for presentations. And unfortunately, the amount of money she won didn't completely cover all of her costs. She was able to raise a little bit more, but the extra $1,000 that we will provide will allow her to go to Tampa, take this very, very special course, and come back. I've already spoken to Director Hustwick and the CAO about the potential for any presentations that she might make to the town employees, and they both have already come up with a couple of suggestions, not just suggestions, but areas that we could really benefit from her expertise. So I think this is, for $1,000, we're going to get a lot more back than I guess in services than the $1,000 we're laying out. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have motions from Public Works Services.
Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, first one is, whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding the awarding of the James Street East Reconstruction Tender number CO 17-02. Now therefore it be resolved that Council authorize the award of the reconstruction of James Street East project to Bain Construction Limited, who submitted the low bid of $676,014.95 plus HST to be funded from the 2017 Public Works capital budget. And it was moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McCartney.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
And the second motion is, whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding the purchase of a new specialized transit bus for the town of Coburg. Now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the purchase of a new 8mm low-floor accessible transit bus from Creative Carriage Limited at a cost of $166,500 plus HST through Metrolinx Transit Procurement Initiative to be funded from the approved 2017 capital budget. It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McCartney.
And I do believe that was 8 meters, not 8 millimeters. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
And Your Worship, the third motion I have tonight is whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the environmental technician regarding Canadian Water and Wastewater Association, CAAA, support for the National and International Wastewater Consortium about flushable products. Now therefore be it resolved that Council grant approval to the Canadian Water and Wastewater Association, CAAA, for the using of Town of Coburg's official logo in conjunction with other municipal partners on all statement pages addressing concerns about flushable products as requested. As moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McCartney.
Okay, and I think it's most appropriate that our logo is on there, since Jennifer Leno in our wastewater department has done so much in terms of supporting this, written papers, and part of the she's part of the committee that's working on it.
Absolutely.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have motions under Planning and Development Services.
Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole has considered a memo from the Director of Planning and Development regarding an application for draft approval of a plan of subdivision, New Amherst Village Community, Stage 2, Phase 2, New Amherst Limited. Now therefore be resolved that Council approve the draft plan of subdivision and associated conditions applicable to Stage 2, Phase 2 of New Amherst Village Community as affixed to the planning report as Schedule B.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have the reading of the bylaws, including the addendum.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Your Worship and members of Council, there are 6 bylaws for presentation, namely a bylaw to authorize the Mayor and Municipal Clerk to execute an encroachment agreement for property located at 319 Division Street, Coburg, 7967187 Canada, Inc. A bylaw to authorize construction and installation of a school crossing in the town of Coburg, King Street East, east side of Cottesmore Avenue, and east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg. A bylaw to authorize the Mayor and Municipal Clerk to execute an agreement with Union Gas Limited to supply natural gas to the buildings and premises located within the Northern Industrial Park. A bylaw to appoint bylaw enforcement officers for the town of Coburg. A bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for the Green Municipal Fund GMF agreement. A bylaw to authorize the Mayor and Municipal Clerk to execute a lease agreement with the Coburg Farmers Market for the use of the market building and Victoria Square parking lot for the 2017 Farmers Market season, Saturdays, May 6, 2017 through to December 23rd, 2017. And I move that first reading be given in these bylaws.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Burkett, all in favor? Carried. Okay.
Sorry, the bylaws Well, actually, the coordinators read the captioned
No,
the bylaws
Go to second reading.
for a second reading. Sorry.
No, we have to go into committee of the whole for a second reading.
Oh, sorry. Committee of the whole for second reading of these by.
Seconder, Councillor Darling, all in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the first one is the bylaw to authorize the mayor and the municipal clerk to execute the encroachment agreement for property located at 319 Division Street, Coburg, 7967187 Canada, Inc. And I give this second reading.
Okay. Any discussion on this minor adjustment? All in favor? Carried.
The second bylaw is to authorize the construction and installation of a school crossing in the town of Coburg, King Street East, at east side of Cottesmore Avenue and the east side of Abbott Boulevard in Coburg. And I give this second reading.
Okay. One question is, are we going to be able to, at this time of year, actually paint on the lines for a crossing? I know there was some discussion earlier that because of the weather, we might have to put down tape as a temporary measure.
I think our directors come up with a solution, Your Worship.
Okay. Mr. Thrasher.
Yeah, Your Worship, you're right that we can't use the normal paint that we use do our pavement markings with, but we can buy a 3M product tape that will work at this time of year in the colder weather.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the second reading? All in favor? Carried.
And the third bylaw I have is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the municipal clerk to execute an agreement with Union Gas Limited to supply natural gas to the buildings and premises located within the Northam Industrial Park. And I give a second reading.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Brockenier. I don't have a motion in front of me. Do I read all the names?
No, you don't have to.
Okay. Okay. This is a bylaw to appoint the bylaw enforcement officers for the town of Coburg, and they are listed in Schedule A. Is that all I say? All righty. For second reading, thank you.
Okay, Council, you have all the, as you know, we do this occasionally where we update our bylaw enforcement officer list. Some are new, some have been taken off. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried for the second reading. Councillor Seguin.
A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute a lease agreement with the Coburg Farmers Market for use of the market building and Victoria Square parking lot for the 2017 Farmers Market season, Saturdays, May 6 to 2017 through to December 23rd, 2017. I offer this as a second reading.
Okay, and we've had the discussion on this. All in favor of the second reading? Carried. Now, Councillor Burkett, we had the one addition when under planning.
Thank you, Your Worship. A bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for the Green Municipal Fund agreement. I move this for second reading.
Okay. Any discussion on this? All in favor of the second reading? Carried.
That the committee rise.
All in favor? Carried.
A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an encroachment agreement for property located at 319 Division Street, Coburg, 7967187 Canada, Inc. A bylaw to authorize construction and installation of a school crossing in the town of Coburg, King Street East, east side of Cottesmore Avenue, and east side of Abbott Boulevard. A bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an agreement with Union Gas Limited to supply natural gas to the buildings and premises located with the Northam Industrial Park. A bylaw to appoint bylaw enforcement officers for the town of Coburg. a bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for the Green Municipal Fund GMF agreement, a bylaw to authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute a lease agreement with the Coburg Farmers Market for the use of market building and Victoria Square parking lot for the 2017 Farmers Market season, Saturdays, May 6, 2017 through to December 23rd, 2017. Your Worship, these have both received first and second readings without amendments. I move third reading of these bylaws, and they finally be passed and ordered signed by the mayor and municipal clerk with the corporate seal affixed.
Seconder? Councillor Darling. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, at this time we have a letter from Tim Robbins, Chair of the Coburg Catholic Elementary Schools Accommodation Review Committee, under correspondence.
Councillor Darling.
Yes, Your Worship. The action recommended here is that Council receive the letter for information purposes, and I would like to make an motion in regard to that letter that we, the Town of Coburg, appoint Deputy Mayor Henderson to this board as requested in the letter.
An excellent proposal. A seconder for that? Councillor Burkett. Any discussion? Just so you know, Councillor McCarthy, when CDCI West and CDCI East were having their meetings, Deputy Mayor Henderson represented us at that as well. So go ahead.
I thank you, Mayor Brockenier. I send my sincerest support to Deputy Mayor Henderson. When I was vice chair of a school board, I was in charge of the accommodation review, and it's a very tough slog. Very strong feelings about where children go to school and whether or not schools stay open and closed. So all the best with your background as a principal. I know you'll be the right man for it, but it's quite an undertaking. So thank you for doing that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Your Worship, at this time we have the Council Coordinator announcements.
Okay, so I only have a few items to discuss. There's a certain amount of activity going on where our Coordinator of Economic Development is fielding a couple of new requests for businesses to locate in Coburg. I think that's good news. We just passed an agreement, or passed a bylaw, I should say, for Union Gas easement agreement in Northern Industrial Park. And I can tell you from talking to Union Gas, that's a result of some of the requests we've had from our existing businesses and new businesses that the gas supply is not adequate for what today's needs are. And so they will be putting in certainly larger gas supply lines to accommodate several expansions, and also the newest operation we have up there, the Canada Candy Company, which will be starting up in April of this year after many, many months of installing and testing out equipment. We also have a young couple in the town of Coburg, or they're now in the town of Coburg, wanting to start up a kind of a grocery restaurant business, and I've been working with our economic development, the Business Advisory Center, and trying to help them find a location for the business. I did talk to the Business Advisory Center last week, and they've got a very solid business plan, so all they need now is a location in the town of Coburg. And it'll be they will then fulfill one of the requirements that we've had through the downtown marketing, which is a kind of a restaurant and grocery store combined. And that's my report. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. First, we tonight passed a bylaw for enforcement officers, but I'm pleased to announce that Peter McLean at one point was a sergeant with the Coburg Police Services, and secondment, he then left to Elmer to be a training officer for the province. And I believe Peter was there for roughly a 5-year period and had a very successful session as a leader in training for future cadets. And I'm pleased to say that out of 41 applications received to the town of Coburg, Peter was certainly shortlisted, and he started his duties today. And with his extensive background, I have great confidence that he'll lead the way, and he'll also help to provide in-house leadership as he undertakes this new role. So hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to meet him. My answer is when you do meet him, you won't miss him. He's hard to miss. He's about 6'5", and so he certainly has a very professional approach. To that, I attended the Better Together refugee sponsorship last night, where we had a celebration. It's been 2 years at that point. I'd like to acknowledge that 2 Syrian families are now living in the town of Coburg with a degree of success. 3 more families, applications have been made, and we're awaiting a report from the Canadian government as to who the families might be. And I'd also like to give credit to the Rotary Club of Coburg. They themselves undertook to sponsor a family, not only financially, but also by being the core group. And a core group means you just don't welcome the family to Canada, but you stay with the family and you provide all their needs and services for an entire year. So that was certainly a great celebration. And there's one other, but it's left me at this time. I apologize. If it comes back to me, Your Worship, I may ask to speak to it.
Absolutely.
That's my report.
If you remember, we will come back to you. Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mayor Brockeneer. Yes, I have a fairly lengthy report here in regard to what's coming up. The waterfront user needs assessment and detailed project design plan. A very important part of what's coming up in our community. The interactive public open house will be held April 4th, starting at 5 p.m. in the chemical room at the CCC. We hope to have quite a few people out for that to put their thoughts forward. And along that line, we have 19 stakeholders. The meetings are scheduled for April 10th and 11th. These meetings are by invitation only to members of community groups who have a key interest in the waterfront's development. The meetings are for us to understand each stakeholder's objectives and their needs for the future. So these 2 are very important meetings for the community users. Again, the greenhouse is having an open house. Just a reminder, May 13th from 9 till noon. Parks will have a booth at the local home show April 29th again. I think Councillor McCarthy will be pleased with this one in that our staff have been busy building picnic tables, and under the AOAD we have built 3 12-foot picnic tables which are wheelchair accessible and 2 6-foot tables with wheelchair access. I think they will find them very handy in the summer at the beach, very convenient for them. An interesting one, benches are being built, and the benches that we're building are from the trees that we've had to remove in town, the ash trees due to the ash borer. So we've had the trees that are big enough to be milled, have been milled and made into boards, and we're using that lumber to build benches for the parks. So I think that's a very interesting project. On Tuesday, March 28th, we held an open public meeting at the library to deal with the concerns over fishing at the Coburg Creek. This meeting was very well attended by residents and anglers, and it was a good fact-finding mission. Everybody was very considerate of each other, and we've had the police down doing some checks just in recent week, and the anglers and the residents were both very pleased to see them there, and I think we're on our way to alleviating a lot of those problems. At our community center, June 10th and 11th this year is the Coburg 55 plus ranked pickleball tournament. This is the 3rd year for this tournament. It's currently approaching half full with registration opening on March 6, 2017. Currently we have participants from as far away as London, Niagara area, Cornwall, and Ottawa. Registration will remain open until May 22nd or until the tournament is full. We are currently able to accommodate about 130 participants over the 2 days. So that's a big event. Just a few quick things for the CCC. The month of April is very busy. Saturday, April 8th and 9th is the Canadian Cat Association AGM and show. Saturday, April 15th is the Ontario Physique Association Bodybuilding Competition, and we host that event annually. Saturday, April 25th, the Mum to Mum sale. April 28th to the 30th is the Hooking Craft Show, which is a yearly event, and also in that weekend, April 29th and 30th, the Northumberland News Spring Home and Leisure Show, which is another yearly event. And on our waterfront, the tender for the handicap accessible public washrooms was open and is yet to be approved by council. But anticipating all things will be in order, hopefully those washrooms in the Marina building will be completed by the end of June. And for those who like to watch the boats going in the water, the scheduled lift-in is April 22nd. And those who are familiar with the waterfront realize we had some problems with the docks, and F-dock repairs will be beginning on this Thursday. And last but not least, a reminder of the RBC Cup. And tickets are on sale now for that event. The Canadian National Fastball U16 event will be held at Legion Fields, August 10th to 13th. We need volunteers for both. And for those who are still interested in our Cougars, are in Game 2 tonight at the CCC. We went out for dinner the other night, went to Trenton to see a hockey game, and couldn't get in because it was sold out. So I'd like to see a lot more in our Coburg Arena to support them, and that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I haven't got too much tonight, but I have a report from our Public Works that we've got 2 more trucks to be cleaned, and they're at the Superior getting worked on now, and all our borrowed trucks and rentals have been returned. So we're back to normal, and I'd like to personally thank the Public Works employees for their patience this winter and how they worked around the problem we had with all the smoke and we've had a good winter, not a rough winter like some years, so we've been very fortunate that way. Also, the Hardened Street Bridge tenders are opening tomorrow, so we should know exactly when we're going to go ahead with that particular project. And on Thursday night at the CC Center at 7 o'clock, there's a public meeting in regards to the Darcy Street study for that street for safety rise. We've had presentations on it before. The other thing, I attended Conservation Ontario today in Toronto, and we have a meeting with the minister tomorrow at Queen's Park as well, and it's a lot to do with the Great Lakes projects and some of the things that have been initiated. One presenter today presented the findings in Lake Erie, and the biggest polluters along the lake were on our American side, and it's to do with a lot of phosphate. So they're working very hard with them, getting some policy and procedure together, and this past year they've had a few positive results. So it's coming together very well on that Great Lakes project. I just wanted to announce that our GTRA dinner is on Saturday night, but I'm sorry to say it's sold out, and I'm happy to say it's sold out. So if anyone's looking to go, they'll have to buy a ticket from a scalper likely or something. And I'd like to personally thank all of council and staff for their and the public for all the condolences I've had over the last 2 weeks. And thank you. That's my report.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rowden. And I was at a transportation meeting at the county this morning, and I took the chance that we've had the last snowfall, and I did thank them for all their help over the winter with supplying us with trucks when we needed them. I also noticed you're talking about the Great Lakes, and as a member of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, there's great concern that President Trump has pulled all of the funding for the restorative programs that are going on in the Great Lakes, and I will be going to the AGM this year, so that we get as many mayors as we can from around the Great Lakes, 125, and start to put some pressure on them to get the funding back, because we're going to be in great danger in terms of invasive species if we don't do something about the Asian carp and preventing the Asian carp from getting out of the Mississippi River into the Great Lakes. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
To that point, Your Worship, have you had any more update on the American city that wishes to divert from Lake Michigan, I believe it is? Have you had any update on that at this point?
So Waukesha, Wisconsin, put in a request to draw water from Lake Ontario, even though they are inland. And the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative did turn them down. Then they put together, Waukesha put together a group of 8 governors from surrounding states, and they overruled the decision by the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. So at the moment, it looks like Waukesha is going to be allowed to draw water from the Lake Michigan, but we haven't given up. We're still fighting that, and that's certainly on the agenda for the June meeting of this year's AGM. Councillor Rowden.
Yeah, Your Worship, and I understand that they have to put a new wastewater management system in order to pump water back into the river that goes by, so that water is being returned to the lake as well. So it's sort of a give and take thing, but there is some guidelines that go with it that I understand they have to do.
But the real issue is once you let one city or town start to draw that is inland start to draw water from Lake Ontario, you're just opening a door for others, and I don't think, I don't, long term, it's not the right thing to do. Okay. Councillor McCarthy, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. But before I begin my report, I would just like to provide a little extra information on Councillor Darling's mention of the rug hooking at the CCC. It's actually a very amazing event. It is the Ontario Hug Craft Guild, or Hooking Craft Guild, that is having a conference there, and we're having a large number of these artisans visit Coburg the 28th, 29th, and 30th. It's tying in with the art gallery exhibition on now that Councillor Seguin will be providing more information on. But I think what is most amazing is that this again is one of the One Canada 150 projects, because the whole theme of this conference is Canada and 150th anniversary, and many of the displayed art pieces will be having a Canadian theme. The public is invited there, and it's a nominal fee, but there will be about 600 examples and demonstrations, so it's a very, very big deal. And our local Northumberland, or what are they called? Sorry, Hooking Guild. I'll leave it there. Sorry. Now, on to protection services. There's actually quite a bit going on in my portfolio, I should say, just to say that maybe we know that there's a lot of building going on in Coburg, and indeed the building report from our Dave Hancock, the permits are up quite a bit over this time last year, a great deal of it due to the activity of new home construction in New Amherst. And we know this is a hot place, a hot community. The Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I'm going to marry that with my Community Emergency Management Program Committee, where I actually have taken the opportunity to put these two groups together. The Accessibility Advisory Committee members are agreeing that our project this year that we'll work on a little bit every month is emergency preparedness, which requires, or the best practice is, you have a plan of how you're going to exit where you live, and you have a preparedness kit, commonly called the 72-hour kit. And our emergency planner, Catherine Chapman, is coming to our meeting this month to get us started. There's quite a bit of literature available on making emergency plans and putting kits together for the various impairments, but also for pets and for animals in service. So it's an undertaking, and the scary part is that I learned this in 2 days of training I did in basic emergency management a few weeks ago. Only 40% of Canadians are prepared. We all know we should be doing this, but to actually say, yep, ready to go, I'll fess up, I'm not. I have the components, but I'm going to raise the bar on this one and do it with the members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. The training I attended in Port Hope was amazing. You just learn about every part of how you deal with an emergency that can get worse over time, and who you're going to call, and the command center, and all of that. And we know, and fortunately, we have plans for various types of emergencies. They're called hazards. And it was, I was just so amazed by that. And this is constantly being worked on. You're never really ready, but you're as ready as you can be, and that's definitely the case. A media release was sent out by Northumberland County, and it's with respect to the fire services. It's the first anniversary of joint fire dispatch, and I know from comments made around the table that was quite an achievement, 20 years in the making. And they just simply wanted to give a sense of the difference it's made to the community, the difference between how it used to be and now. And I want to quote our fire chief. Timing is everything in an emergency, states Northumberland County Fire Chiefs Association Chair and Coburg Fire Chief Mike Villeneuve. The average time to dispatch a truck to a call in the old regime was around the 1 minute mark, and that is now down to 20 seconds across the board. And this is a partnership with all of the municipalities in Northumberland and the county. And when I did my training in Peterborough on fire preparedness, I saw the command center because the dispatch contract went to Peterborough Fire Services, so I have seen the command center. But we're very, very fortunate in this community that that agreement has been struck, and the evidence of it is proved true. With respect to Coburg Police Services, I would ask folks to go to the website of Cornerstone. They have they celebrate men in the community who are partners in reducing the incidence of violence against women. And they have what they call the Man of the Month, and this month's is our Chief of Police Services, Kai Liu. And if you don't know much about Kai, other than we know he's a tremendous progressive leader, there's a lot of wonderful information there, so please go have a look at that. And also today, myself and Councillor Seguin were present with the Police Services Board for the launch or the announcement of the special agreement between Cornerstone and Coburg Police Services, because they have recruited one of the staff members of Cornerstone as a member of Coburg Police Services staff who will be involved ongoing in sexual assault cases. This is a new territory. Police services are looking at this, and there are a few examples within the country, but it's quite remarkable, and it has a lot to do with the combined leadership of our chief, and who has a lot of experience with domestic violence, and Deputy Chief Paul Vandergraaf, who has a great deal of experience with sexual assaults when he was with Belleville. So this is a wonderful partnership. The difference is that and it was explained so well at the press conference today, someone trained in assisting women that have experienced sexual assaults and supporting them come with a different filter than criminal case sexual assault. And it just speaks tremendously of our police services that they are open to and embracing the partnership with Cornerstone. So that's just tremendous. And tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I get to go to Notre Dame School for the launch of a repurposed cruiser, police services cruiser, for the anti-bullying campaign. Again, we know that we start young on these issues because children that experience bullying are affected lifelong, and the children who are bullies often end up in the criminal life. So I'm just so excited in my portfolio and all the things happening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Burkett.
I really only have one thing to update on tonight, and that's we've initiated the conversation with the consultant that is doing the tannery district plan, so FOTAN. So that will be, we're starting to ramp up on that in the next couple of weeks, and that's all I have.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Seguin.
I'll make up a little bit for that, Aaron, Councillor Burkett. Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Before I start my report, that was an amazing session today and at Cornerstone. And what you mentioned, you forgot to say that this initiative with the Coburg Police is only one of 5 in Canada and the first in Ontario. So it just shows how progressive this community really is to tackle both sexual assault and domestic abuse. So it'll probably never end, but I think people need to be constantly aware of what it is. And I kind of think a hooking craft would be as well. You mentioned hugs instead of hooking, and I think we could use more hugs as well. On to my report. The Canada 150 events are just going good and strong. There's so much going on, and it's just amazing. Lara Scott is keeping very busy to our event coordinator to keep myself and everyone involved. The first on my list is the Coburg Harbour, a story of small town Ontario. If you know Stanley Isherwood and Joan Chalovich, they've been working really hard on this. It's on April the 20th, and I think you probably all got invitations, 7 p.m. at the Citizens Forum, Victoria Hall. It's official kickoff of the online Community Memories project produced by the Museum Foundation and the Virtual Museum of Canada. So I'm really looking forward to that. This is an amazing harbour that we have here, and I can't wait to see what they've put together for this visual memory walk down. La Jeunesse Spring Choral Concert, Canada Calling, is on April the 23rd from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., celebrating Canada's 150th with music from various Canadian composers and artists. The place is the Trinity United Church. So looking forward to that. Canada 150, a portrait and documentary film, April 29th to 30th, presented by the Marie Dressler Foundation, and that takes place at the Loft, 201 Division Street. We're really lucky in Coburg to have this venue, the Loft upstairs. He brings all kinds of interesting film and presentations to the arts and culture scene here in Coburg. And waiting for the parade is a Canadian playwright, John Murrell, March 31st to April 15th. It's presented by the Northumberland Players at the Fire Hall Theatre. And Councillor McCarthy mentioned Images of Canada, the rug hooking display and the history of rug hooking in Canada, April 30th, 2017 at the Coburg Community Centre. And of course it's in liaison with what's the beautiful exhibit they have upstairs. And Director Dean Huswick and I are going to go spend some time in there next week with James Campbell. And he's even promised us a tour of the vault to see what great things we've got stored away. And anyone who wants more information on what's coming on this year-long events, Coburg2017.com is the website. Lara also mentioned that municipal event applications are coming in on a regular basis, and she will be sending council a new update email by the end of this week. There are a few new ones, mostly sporting tournaments. Santa Claus Parade meetings have been ongoing with community groups, and I've been told that there will be a Santa Claus Parade this year. Council and the public will hear a full report on April the 17th. So that's excellent news and gives us time, hopefully, to still book some bands. And this committee has been working really hard. I've personally been approached by several people who want to donate money and want to make sure that this parade actually takes place. So good for this community. Coburg Downtown BIA, the Spring Passport Program. They printed 8,000 of these little cards. I've got one for each one of you, by the way. It's a passport. You get to get your stamp on the back, and they've already got 1,000 of them back in the DBIA office. And we have musical accompaniment to the community services report. It started on the it started on 3rd of March, and it goes through to the 30th of April. And you go up and downtown. For every $10 you spend with downtown Coburg, you get a stamp on your passport. So it's an innovative way, and the winners will be announced on Girls' Night Out. I'm trying to get my 3 girls to come down from Toronto for Girls' Night Out, but one of them is going to be really pregnant by that time, so she probably will pass. And that takes place on Friday, the May 12th. The Paige Montgomery, I stopped in to see her today. She's just a delightful young lady, and she's getting the word out on downtown Coburg. She speaks at local events, and she's now got a monthly column in Northumberland today called The Downtown Connection. So it was almost a half page in this week's paper. So good for her, and good for Northumberland today for giving downtown Coburg that space. And you may have noticed all the wonderful Canadian flags that are flying in downtown. They got a $150 grant to supply nice new Canadian flags, and I think every store has got one, if not 2. And it's very festive as you're going up and down the main street. Coburg Public Library, their spring newsletter is out and available at the library. And April is National Poetry Month, and I asked Tammy from the library, what would you like me to say in my council report? And she says, talk about the seed library, she said. Now, those of us that go back a few years, we remember we used to go to the library. We had those little cards in those little drawers, and we had to go in there and find out. Everybody's nodding, except maybe for this guy, and pull out the card and then find out where it was in the library. It's all done by computer now. But that's where the seeds are. Think about it. Those little seed packets are about the same size as those little library cards were. So that's where the seeds are. And the idea is you go in there and you use your library card and you get a seed. You get some seeds. You plant them, and then when you harvest them, you collect the seeds and you bring them back to the library. And more people can get more seeds. And they're working with Villa St. Joseph Community Gardens Group, and the Rotary Club has provided some funding for that. Art Gallery of Northumberland, then and now. The rug hooking is on until the end of the month on April the 30th. And again, if you haven't seen it, it's an amazing presentation, and the rug hooking is going live and well. It's colorful, and it's just a beautiful show. They're also having a public lecture on the 5th of April in a couple days at 2 p.m., a tour and discussion of the exceptional hooked rug exhibit at the AGN, rug hooking techniques, design and historical background, and they're going to feature the 80 rugs on display. And demonstrations will be provided by the Northumberland rug hookers, so obviously a very busy group. Our board will be reviewing the 2017 budget next week, and the next board meeting is April the 12th. So more information on the Art Gallery and all the things that they do, artgalleryofnorthumberland.com. And just a few more things. The bylaw review team, we're talking about the refreshment vehicle bylaw and how it pertains to events, and certainly how it pertains to certain refreshment vehicles at the farmers market. So that's a topic that will be ongoing, but a lot of people need to know the legislation and how it pertains for the town. The Downtown Marketing Partnership, we've met several times. We have a subcommittee, and we're working really hard to develop a detailed business marketing plan for the downtown. We've looked at business and consumer surveys, and we're working with the Downtown Coalition to prepare a situation analysis so that we can actually bring something to the table for council that makes sense, that is measurable, and that in the long term will benefit the downtown. We're not going to bring anything here until it makes sense to everyone around our little table. So we've been meeting weekly and working really hard at looking what's been done and what has to be done. Wendy Gibson has provided our working group with a detailed report on the vacant businesses, not only the businesses that are vacant in the downtown, how long they've been vacant, what was there before, and what could be put in there. For example, there's certain restaurants that have, certain food entities that can only go in there. So we're really taking a hard look at why things are empty and what we can possibly do to attract a business that'll fit. So our group will present the downtown marketing to the Downtown Coalition, and we're going to bring clear objectives, marketing strategies, and a detail of the tactics that will be applied to achieve the plan objectives. And we're working with Kara right here from the town, the communications coordinator, a real estate person, and we're really getting some hard facts and drilling right through it. So hard at work, and hopefully it won't be too long till we'll get a report back to council. Central Committee met last week. For those that you don't know, I know everyone on the table knows, but this group is comprised of local service clubs, the media, and the council rep. That would be me now. We discuss upcoming events and how the town can work with all these service clubs. And they're pretty blunt. They really want to tell you exactly how it is. And that's a good thing. I don't think council should ever be afraid of hearing it right from people, and it shouldn't ever be sugar-coated. I was asked about parking, for example, in Dunnigan Park this summer during the Waterfront Festival. And Lara Scott confirmed today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Thrasher, but she basically said that there will not be a pay and display units for the parking lot this summer. That was discussed, apparently. So we're good. Okay. That'll make them happy, because the Central Committee used that as a fundraiser, and if you remember last year, they had a shuttle. So just the last couple of upcoming events. There's a VIMI vigil at the Cenotaph on April the 8th. I don't have a time. Do you have a time? No. And on April the 15th, there's 2 different Easter events. Extravaganza by the Garden Group at Rotary Harbourfront Park, and the Easter egg hunt in the dog park. Don't know what much more to say about that. And it's sponsored by Northumberland Humane Society. And Lara wanted me to mention that the Movies on the Beach poster is out, and I know everybody's been anticipating these movies, because there are 3 of them: Secret Life of Pets, Moana, and Rogue One Star Wars. So great event to bring your kids to the beach, and that starts at 8:30. We're not going to go to the beach quite yet, because it needs to warm up just a bit. And Your Worship, that's my report.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Seguin. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Henderson.
No, I don't have a question, Worship, but I did remember the one item. Cornerstone, thank you for someone mentioning it earlier many times, but just for the males out there, Cornerstone's already put out their promo material for Walk a Mile in Her Red Shoes. The mayor's got it, I've got it, other members of council have it. We've been there. So my encouragement is, if you're a male and you haven't partake in this wonderful event, that's a fundraiser, my answer is you too can walk in high heel shoes. If not, even red runners. So please look at that seriously. It's for a wonderful cause. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to echo those comments, Deputy Mayor Henderson, because it's not always just about raising money, it's about raising awareness. And I think, that's the important thing that we're doing. And the more men we can get involved, the more awareness we're going to raise. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing, but I know that at 3 o'clock this Friday, being a charter member of the Red Shoes Walk and Scott McCoubry, we're doing some sort of a promotional film. So it'll be a surprise for me when I get there. Yeah. But I did, Deputy Mayor Henderson, I did look up my notes on the Waukesha diversion issue, and of course there was a compact council established to hear both sides of the argument from Waukesha on the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. That will be taking place on April the 20th, and the Compact Council will be releasing their final decision early in May. So one final comment before I call for an adjournment is the Civic Awards Wednesday night. Make sure you get there in time. There will be seats reserved for all members of council at the very front on the left-hand side. And the theme color this year is red. Not mandatory, but if you have something red, just wear it. I'm waiting on my red bow tie to come in for my tux, so hopefully my son will deliver on that, and I'll have some red on anyway. If there is nothing else, motion to adjourn. Councillor Seguin.